Rainbow Six Siege has just received the third of its 4 planned Year 1 DLC packs, Operation Skullrain. The Brazilian-themed DLC adds 2 new operators, Attacker Capital and Defender Kuvira, a new map, Favela, that features exterior shell destruction, a tactical realism custom game mode, as well as a bunch of minor fixes. I've spent pretty much a full day diving into the new content, so let me give you the rundown on what I've found. The new Favela map, like all previously released maps, is free for all players. Much has been made of the new exterior shell destruction, which allows players to blow out exterior walls to minimize hiding places for the opposing team. These walls are all destructible by all the usual means: sledge, ash, thermite, breaching charges, and good old elbow grease. The objective sites on Favela have plenty of destructible walls, so camping in an unreinforced corner isn't the best idea. Roaming seems to be the way to go for this map, as it's easy to get the drop on your opponents in the maze-like layout. Speaking of getting the drop on opponents, the first new operator, Kuvira, is a dynamo for roaming and sneaking. Her first unique ability is Silent Step, that allows her to get up close without alerting enemies in order to incapacitate and interrogate them, revealing enemy positions on the map. When using Silent Step, Kuvira is restricted to her sidearm, Louison, a non-lethal pistol with a built-in silencer. I'm garbage with sidearms, which is why I never play shield operators, so I never really used Silent Step to its full potential. That being said, in the right hands, being able to down enemies and then interrogate them will be invaluable. And when paired with Frost's Welcome Mat ability, interrogation is going to be an absolute beast. As it stands now, I'm not sure where I sit on the interrogation ability. I've always liked that tagging enemies with drones and cameras gives you a static position marker that doesn't follow the enemy, but interrogation marks enemies with their operator symbol and it follows them for about 10 seconds. It's kind of like when a defender ventures outside. Part of me feels that 10 seconds is too long, while the other thinks that it's a worthy reward for the risk of exposing yourself for the time it takes to execute the interrogation. It's going to be interesting to see how the community and players far above my skill level end up using Kuvira. The second new operator is the Attacker Capital. His unique ability is a micro crossbow that fires 2 different kinds of ammunition. The first are micro smoke grenades that can be deployed to cover your advance, while the second are area of effect asphyxiating bolts. Basically, they're flaming arrows that burn up the oxygen in a small area, damaging enemies in close proximity. They're great for when you need to keep an enemy from advancing or when you want to flush someone out of a hiding place you can't quite get an angle on. Hot tip, no pun intended, asphyxiating bolts are deadly to Capital, so don't make the same mistake I did by firing them into the wall in front of you. The micro smoke grenades I found useful, at least in theory, as misdirection. I tried to fire them over the head of enemies to try and make it seem we were entering from a different direction. But like every round of Siege I've ever played, my best laid plans would go out the window as soon as I encountered even the slightest hitch, usually in the form of someone shooting me in the head. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get enough people together to be able to try the tactical realism mode, but it looks like everything I'm looking for and more. The hardcore mode's goal is to increase immersion by reducing reliance on in-game feedback. Staples like crosshairs, enemy marking, friendly player markers, and kill confirmations are all gone, and there's new, more realistic magazine management. There have also been a host of tweaks and changes to the underlying game that Ubisoft is referring to as the health program. One of the major updates is a new attachment, the angled grip, that allows faster aiming down sights. Don't worry, it's not Call of Duty level of snappiness, but I did find it useful when I needed to draw on an enemy in a 1v1 situation. The downside is an increased recoil, so using this with sustained fire isn't ideal, but as a burst grip for players new to Siege who may grapple with the slower pace, or seasoned vets who like to roam around the map, it's a great addition. Another handy new feature is the ability to check what loadouts your teammates have selected during the ready up phase. A few times I noticed we were all loading in with barbed wire or frags, so I would back out and adjust my loadout accordingly. I also used it to check the loadout of skilled players I was matchmade with, so I could see how their gear differed. Customizing gear is now much prettier thanks to a full screen weapon preview that can be zoomed to highlight specific attachments. The tactical map has also been improved with more detail for both defenders and attackers. The heads-up display has also been updated, with armor no longer displayed and new player icons that, according to Ubisoft, make determining the status of your teammates a much smoother process. During play, however, I found the new question mark player indicators harder to read. The red X that denotes a dead player has been dimmed, so at a glance it's harder to quickly identify how many enemies are still kicking around. Maybe it's just a transitional thing I'll adjust to in time, but I'd suggest a brighter red X to make info like this more easily read at a glance. Overall, Operation Skullrain is a welcome improvement to an already great underlying game. The addition of the 2 new operators is exciting, and I can't wait to see how they end up being used in higher skill play. The amount of destruction on Favela makes for a more dynamic, changing map that asks players to adjust their playstyle, and the work Ubisoft has put into improving the base game through the health program will help maintain an audience of tactical multiplayer shooter fans. If you want to talk Rainbow Six or just video games in general, come find me on Twitter, and for a full list of the other tweaks and changes that have been rolled out to Siege, check out our coverage on GameSpot.